Hello, I'm Chuck Martin, and welcome to the Voices of the Internet of Things. With me today is Touraj Parang, President and Chief Operating Officer of Serve Robotics. Touraj has been Operating Advisor at Pear VC, Founding Chief Operating Officer at UpCouncil, and Vice President of Business and Corporate Development at GoDaddy. At Serve, Touraj leads the AI and robotics revolution. Welcome here, Touraj.
Well, great to be here, Chuck. Thanks for having me on.
It's quite a revolution you're leading, too. Tell people about what Serve Robotics is.
Well, Serve Robotics is kind of transforming urban delivery. We have these cute robots that roam on the sidewalks and deliver food. We have partnerships with Uber Eats and DoorDash now. And we have over 1,000 robots right now in the US deployed doing deliveries. And we are excited by what's ahead.
So where did the idea come from?
So Serve actually started around 8 years ago inside of a food delivery company called Postmates here in the US. Postmates was subsequently acquired by Uber and is now part of Uber Eats. And so the origin of the program was a special project within Postmates. And that was actually a blessing because we had a first line of sight into how deliveries work, how the economics of deliveries work, and how could robots contribute to making deliveries more efficient and even more delightful, especially for short distance deliveries where our robots are focused on. When we do deliveries on the sidewalks, we concentrate more on the shorter distance ones, and the longer distance deliveries are still done by humans.
So what was it like at the very beginning? Because you've been doing this for some time.
Yes, I actually joined Serve when we post acquisition by Uber for 4.5 years ago, when we spun out Serve to be an independent venture-backed company. So for the folks that were on the ground floor building Serve from the beginning, it's been quite a ride. They didn't really know what the robot should look like, what properties it should have, like how fast should it go, where should it go, and all those things. And so it's been from the first week of Serve's inception, it's been incremental experimentation, and that's part of the ethos of the company. We just experiment the heck out of everything, and that culture transformed over. And when we spun out, we were about 60 people, and now we are hundreds of employees, and it's been just a thrill to be part of this journey with the team.
So you're now in, or your robots are in Miami, Dallas, Chicago, Atlanta, LA. How do you pick a market?
It's a multi-pronged approach. We look at what, first of all, our go-to-market strategy is through partnerships. So Uber Eats and now DoorDash, we look at which markets they are most excited about us going into. And for them, they look at really the density and the order volume and some of the characteristics of that market. Then we look at the regulatory environment. By default, robots pretty much in the US are not prohibited from going on the sidewalks, but we still take a very proactive approach to regulations and go talk to municipalities and the transportation authorities and interest groups, local interest groups, really, to understand their concerns, to make sure they know what we want to do. And if there are any issues, we want to address them before we even deploy in an area. We look at also the infrastructure, the sidewalk infrastructure, the particular characteristics like of the terrain. Our robots are pretty much, like a stroller for those of your audience that haven't seen our robots yet, kind of think of it of a shopping cart or stroller kind of footprint. We want to make sure they navigate safely around those sidewalks and there's enough room for everybody. So we look at all those things. Also, weather used to be a big factor in where we would pick. We started in Los Angeles because of its very mild climate. But we are now, as you mentioned, we are in Chicago, we're in Miami. So we are becoming more and more brave and resilient to weather as with each new generation of the robot.
Your robots must be very familiar with how sidewalks work.
They know sidewalks well, yes. We've done now over 100,000 deliveries. Each delivery makes the entire system smarter. They are for most part autonomous, these robots. We still have humans in the loop as a safety, as a as a supervisor for the robot. But the autonomy system with each delivery, with each mile basically traversed, becomes smarter. And we share actually some of that knowledge about sidewalks, etc., with the cities, for instance, about the conditions of their sidewalks. With whoever needs to know basically what that urban infrastructure looks like.
So your sidewalks must be different in every city. Do you ever come across a city where you say we don't like the sidewalks here, so we're not going to come here?
That's interesting. There is different traffic patterns, different sidewalks. I don't think we've come across a city where we said we don't like your sidewalks. But we are in 5 geos right now. Hopefully, pretty much places we go are dense urban environments, and those sidewalks tend to be better maintained. I would say LA trained as well because LA sidewalks, I don't know if you've been there, can be challenging. There are some uh, maintenance needed on some of the sidewalks. And what we have had to create is pretty large wheels on our robots and a drivetrain that doesn't easily get stuck, even if there are uneven pavements, even if there's an incline to climb. Like in West Hollywood, you have very steep terrain, and our robots have been navigating those pretty well.
So what are the most delivered things in the robots? Do you know?
Um, so deliberate, I would say everything we have done with the robots have been deliberate. And so we designed it for bringing a delightful experience to the sidewalk. We had to kind of navigate between two polar opposites. One is a robot that seems kind of formidable and scary or foreign and alien that could scare people, or a robot that could be very friendly, very almost cartoonish. And so it would become an attraction in and of itself, and then it couldn't do its job. So we had to kind of navigate in between. So the user experience and design of the robot has been very deliberate. I think the most common adjective used to describe our robot is cute. We are very proud of that. We have the cutest robots out there, I may say. And they have two big eyes in front, which I'm sure contributes to that. Um, for those of you who haven't seen it, I really encourage you to go to serverobotics.com. At least you get a sense for what we are talking about. If you want to imagine it, kind of think about a Minion and Wally, the Disney characters, had a baby. So I leave it at that.
So when you go to a city initially, and I know you must have to train them in the city first, do people at the beginning get shocked or wonder, say, what is this thing? And then eventually it's just become part of the everything that's on the sidewalk?
It's amazing. When you go to any of the cities where we've been operating for more than a week, it pretty becomes part of the urban infrastructure, and everybody is just walking by. And usually it's a tourist or people, influencers who want to take selfies with the robots and really are curious about them. But for local residents, usually it becomes fact of life. And that's what we want to do. We want robotics to become part of the urban infrastructure and something that's not obstructing people, something that's in their way, but actually perhaps adds a little element of delight to the sidewalk environment.
So what's the role of AI in all this?
So AI has been a huge unlock for the robotics industry, I would say. If you kind of think about it, if you didn't have AI, if you didn't have autonomy, what you would have to do with these robots is that you would have to have a human operator, really, manually, basically, control the robots, which what you see with a lot of these demos of humanoid robots out there. Usually there's a person somewhere that's kind of doing all the movements.
Yeah, nobody
Uh,
knows that, by the way.
yes, but you have to be an industry insider, I suppose. So with these autonomous sidewalk robots, we did have a generation that was the earlier generations that were more human operated, so to speak. But from the beginning of Serve Robotics, our vision was that the economics wouldn't work. Again, having seen the food delivery economics from inside of a food delivery company, economics wouldn't work unless you get actually a significant ratio of humans to robots. So you're going to have multiple robots basically managed by one human remote operator. Um, and the only way that can happen is through autonomy. Um, uh, you know, you can't be remote controlling multiple robots at the same time for obvious reasons. So autonomy unlocks that scale, which also makes then delivery sustainable and efficient. And it kind of creates this virtuous cycle where as you bring the cost of delivery down, and we've stated that our goal is to bring it even down to as low as $1 per delivery, then there's more people ordering from their local merchants, local businesses, and then there'll be more deliveries, and then they get more efficiencies, and just this virtuous cycle, and it helps with a thriving local economy.
So once a person gets a delivery by the robot, what's their first experience and the experiences after? They must be different.
It's so wonderful. Like we get so many inbound messages from people who have experienced the robots or their children have experienced getting it, and they're just like they're so grateful and they're gushing over it. And each robot has its own unique name. So actually, people start actually uh, kind of getting to know the robots by name. And again, after multiple times, people kind of get habituated and get used to them. One of the great things about robotic delivery is that they're actually uh, highly reliable. They're more reliable in terms of order completion rate. We published this on our website. 99.8% of the orders that we pick up, we deliver. And so people are very happy with getting their delivery by a robot. In fact, we get a lot of inquiries about how do I make sure that a robot delivers my food. And because, as I mentioned, our go-to-market strategy is with these food delivery platforms, we can't control that. It's really assigned based on the order characteristics by the platform like Uber Eats or DoorDash to the customer. Um, so unfortunately, we can't force a delivery to be a robotic delivery, but if you live in a neighborhood that's and work with order from a merchant that's enabled on our platform, chances are you live close to it, chances are you will sooner or later get a robotic delivery.
So when these robots happen, um, are they going fast? Are people saying, "Hey, where's my robot delivery?"
Yes. So basically, the constraint on our speed is the sidewalk conditions and making sure that we are doing it in a safe manner. I like to say that robots move at the speed of trust, and we need to make sure that anyone on the sidewalk can trust and feel that the robots are safe. And so that's the only constraint. As again, our autonomy improves, we can dial up the speed, but we want to be very careful about that. Again, we're not trying to deliver orders that are very far, usually a mile and a quarter or less. So that in that radius, if you can get the order to the customer within 30 minutes, it's pretty comparable to the expectations with a human courier delivery. So we don't have to go super fast, but the faster we go, the better for the customers, the better for the platform, for everybody. So we are constantly trying to see how can we safely go faster. Also, sidewalk conditions, congestion on the sidewalks, the breadth of the sidewalk, the number of traffic lights that, for instance, we have to cross on a route to a customer. All those factors influence how fast the delivery is. And we're constantly optimizing and trying to figure out routes and ways that we can do this as fast as possible.
What's the future look like in terms of delivery? Right now, you can deliver food, last mile, and so forth. There's something else because you must know a lot about robotics now.
You know, that is correct. We have learned a lot about robotics in the past 8 years. And one of the things that we are actually doing is we are developing a platform on the back end that can be used even by others with other form factor robots. So our autonomy stack or software stack, all of those are can be very useful for other companies that are building robotics applications, especially in human environments, where in places where they would have to interact with humans. Our data even that we collect can be used to train other models, physical AI models. So yes, the one of the benefits of having so many robots out there, and we've put the goal on our website and in our basically communications to the public that we plan to deploy 2,000 robots by the end of the year. And so that's a lot of robots doing a lot of good work and collecting a lot of good data, and that entire backend is a platform that can be used by others. And we're in active conversations with folks that are looking into that.
So what do you see, not just for Sir, but just the future of robotics? We've got humanoid robotics as mentioned. AI is advancing rapidly. Where does robotics go ultimately?
I think we are at an inflection point for an exponential growth in the number of robots we'll see out there in public spaces. There have been for many years a lot of robots that have been confined to private spaces in factory warehouses, etc., for manufacturing. Amazon recently announced that they have 1 million robots deployed in their warehouses. But I think
They
there will be
don't look
orders
as
of
good as
magnitude.
yours.
They're very robotic. So yes, there is going to be a lot of robots outdoor that are going to interact with public. And the reason for that, I think, is multifold. The cost has come significantly down to build these robots, like the sensor stack, batteries, compute, all of those are pretty much 10% of what they used to be a decade ago. So they have significantly come down. So that makes that possible. Then the AI maturity we talked about is enabling all these sorts of efficient applications. And then we have ubiquitous broadband because still these robots need to connect to their home base, to the central servers, etc., or the two humans that are supervising them. And the convergence of these factors, I think, makes for this explosion in robotics.
So long term, do you expect to be outside the US, or is the US so large that you don't have to do that?
It's true. US is a massive market, but all of the partners that we have also operations outside of US. So we are constantly kind of thinking about what makes the most sense. We've had tests in the past outside of US in Vancouver, for instance, with Pizza Hut. We had a small test. Or in Qatar just a few months ago. So we are looking at different places where our robots could be useful. We haven't announced anything publicly yet, but we are definitely it's on our radar.
So a year from now, we're sitting here talking about robotics. What will we be talking about?
I think we'll be talking about how much more robots there are out there and hopefully, how happy people are with the experience with these robots and all the new applications. It's kind of like the iPhone moment, I would say, for robots. When the iPhone initially came out, it was very hard to imagine what are all the various things we could do with an iPhone. And you kind of saw those limited number of apps and it's like, okay, but like Uber was created on top of that and other applications. The things that just like completely blew our minds. I think with robotics becoming an infrastructure for our cities, we'll see similar things hopefully happening. I don't know if it's going to be next year, but I think it will eventually happen.
Well, I look forward to that conversation in a year. Thank you, Touraj, and thank you all for listening to the Voices of the Internet of Things. I'm Chuck Martin.
Thank you, Chuck. Enjoy the conversation.